Catherine Clark. Welcome to Beyond Politics. This week I'm delighted to welcome the Member of Parliament from Papineau, Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau, welcome to Beyond Politics.
Thank you, Catherine.
It's great to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And welcome back to Ottawa in an official capacity.
Thanks.
Yeah. Are you enjoying this new career?
You know, I'm enjoying it more than I suspected I would. I sort of was resigned to it, knowing that I was going to be a part of something important, doing good things, and sort of would have to suffer all the things that go with politics. But the intellectual stimulation, just all the knowledge that I'm having to draw in, the experts I'm listening to, contact with people, with constituents, people who come to Ottawa who have issues, who have concerns, the human contacts, the strategic side of politics combined with the meaning side of politics. I'm really enjoying it. Yes, there are tough days, but in general, I've discovered that this is something that suits me extraordinarily well.
When you walked into the House of Commons, or even just into Parliament itself, and it's a place that you had known growing up just as a natural part of your childhood, I mean, it was just where Dad went to work. What was it like for you to go in there as a Member of Parliament yourself?
You know, the one thing I remember was walking up from the Eternal Flame to the Peace Tower the first time I was on the Hill after having been elected. And there's just this sense of, oh my God, this is now where I'm going. This is my place. This is my chance to this is where I'm legitimately situated right now. And the advantage of having fought such a tough election campaign as I did was there was no sense of anything other than that I had worked extremely hard to get here. Regardless of all the family history, everything else, this was now my place. And it was a very comfortable sense of continuation. My father had been in the House of Commons. My grandfather had been in the House of Commons. But there was nothing automatic for me about that I would end up there. So having had to fight as hard as I did to get elected, bringing to it, my grandfather was an engineer, my father was a lawyer, I'm a teacher, bringing my own path to it the way that I shaped that was a real sense of a natural extension of everything that I had. And the fact that there was a family history there almost demystified or de-intensified the moment, because it was, okay, this is a place where you get things done. There wasn't that sense of instant, intimidation or awe. This was just, okay, I'm here because I worked hard, and this is a place where I have a lot of work to do. And it was a very comfortable and yet magical feeling at the same time.
Where is your office? Are you right in Centre Block?
No, I'm down at the end of a long hall in Confederation Building, a great little space that's, my office got pictures of canoes on the wall and some wilderness shots and some just little knickknacks that it's my space, and it's just amazing to have an office on the Hill.
Yeah, well, and it would be kind of strange in a way, I guess, because you would naturally know where things like the Parliamentary Restaurant are, or how to get to the Members Gallery to sit and watch Question Period, or just how to get in. But you might not necessarily know all of the other nooks and crannies on all the different floors, or where the bathrooms are even. Sometimes.
There was a sense of familiarity, but also a sense of just totally being as much, if not more, out of my element.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Because yes, I mean, I can tell you about the sandstone walls, just the feeling of the place, absolutely. And the security guards all remember me from when I was,
and they tell you that
all the time.
Yeah, I remember
you get that a couple of times, I'm sure. But learning the routines, figuring out where to go, having to go. Well, before I was elected, having to go through security every time was a little bit of a wake up for me. I'm like, okay, good. Of course, there's security. Yes. Of course, we need to. Yeah. But it never used to be security for me. And someone asked me, do you have a top secret clearance? Do you have a secret
when you
clearance?
Went through with your dad.
Yeah, but they asked me if I had a secret clearance. I'm like, I don't know. Did I have one then? Does it carry on? They're like, no, you don't, Justin. And you didn't. I'm like, okay. There's an interesting sort of family aspect to it, but nothing that really takes away from the newness of it and the challenges that I'm facing as a rookie, trying to learn and figure out which end is up.
How did your wife Sophie feel about your decision to run?
We had a number of conversations about it, obviously, as she realized that it would mean lots of sacrifices for us as a family, for her as an individual. She had all sorts of dreams and things that she wanted to do, and she knew that she would have to put part of them aside if we as a family decided to go into politics. It's not an individual decision, it's a family decision. So, we had some good conversations about it, and fundamentally she said, if you choose to not go into politics, if we decide that no, you shouldn't go into politics, it would be a fundamentally selfish decision. It would be no, you're making good money as a professional public speaker, we've got lots of vacation time, we've got time to travel, we've got freedom right now. To go into politics would mean a pay cut, it would mean less time with the family, it would mean all the sacrifices that go in with public service. But it would be giving something back. It would be living up to some of the responsibility that you have for the luck and the things that you've been given all your life. So for us to choose not to do that and to go off and travel or work as a teacher or anything would be us choosing not to contribute, us choosing to be selfish. And she said, that's not the kind of family I want to raise my children in. So the actual weekend I sort of announced that I was going into politics was the same weekend that Sophie announced that she was pregnant with our first child. And everything happened at the same time. But so far, so good.
How did you meet Sophie?
Sophie was a friend of was in class with my little brother Michel. They were at elementary school together, and she sort of knew me as the older brother who was, out there and whatever. I had no awareness of her. But
Did she have a crush on you? Did she
She doesn't go that far,
Okay.
but she was certainly aware of me.
Okay.
And then and that was years, decades ago. Then when I returned from Vancouver in 2003, after 5 years of living out in Van, I was co-hosting an event for the Starlight Children's Foundation in Montreal, and she was there as the other host. She was the professional media co-host, because she was working in radio and TV at that point. So the two of us met. She said, "Oh, I was a friend of Mishi's." I said, "Oh, really? Excellent." So we hit it off. It was just amazing dynamics. She sent me an email a few days later saying, it was really nice to catch up with you, Justin. Look forward to seeing you again sometime. And I never responded to the email.
Why?
Because I knew that the day I went out for coffee with her was the last day I would ever have as a single man.
Why? So then why would you wait?
Well, because I had a few things to wrap up. I had a few things that I needed to take care of. Does she know this story? She knows this story, and she had a few things loose ends to wrap up as well.
Okay.
So we ran into each other about 3 months later at the end of the summer in Montreal, and I said, "Oh, hi, Sophie. I'm sorry I didn't respond to the email," which was the only thing. First thing I said, I apologized, and she was like, "Okay, you know what to say." And I responded afterwards. A couple of days later, I sent her an email. We went out for our first date, and at the end of the first date, I told her, "We're just going to have to skip dating, skip boyfriend and girlfriend, go straight to fiance, because I'm going to spend the rest of my life with you."
You said that to her on the first date?
I said that on the first date.
And what did she say?
It took her 2 or 3 weeks to realize that I was serious.
Okay.
And it took her another 2 or 3 weeks to realize I was right.
Okay.
And then that was it. It just fell into place.
Are you that impulsive about most major decisions?
There was nothing impulsive about that.
You just knew it was
a
preordained.
deep recognition that Sophie was the person that I wanted to spend my life with.
That's pretty fantastic.
I was very, very lucky to have that happen that way, and she was pleased that it happened. We both had our fair share of hits and misses throughout our lives,
Right.
and when we finally connected and clicked, it was just right.
How is it with kids?
the original plan was that Sophie and the kids were going to come to Ottawa with me 3-4 days a week, and I'd be home for dinner and see them off in the morning. And the kids are still young enough to be portable. They could spend a day in Montreal, 2 days, 2-3 days in Ottawa, back in Montreal.
Right.
And that was the plan. So we got a nice 2-bedroom apartment here that we were going to be able. The reality is, it's just too much hauling 2 kids under 2 back and forth all the time, and that was unrealistic. And instead I come here, I do my thing, 3-4 days a week, well, 4 days a week, sometimes 5 days a week, and then I go back and I spend weekends with the family and in the riding. It's really tough.
Oh my God, I can't imagine. Because, and not to hammer home the point of how tough it is, but when they're that age, they're changing all the time, they're doing new things all the time, and it's a real, it's a sacrifice for Sophie because she's there trying to raise them herself during the week. But it's a sacrifice for you because you're coming home and you're seeing new little kids every
Yeah, and Xavier, well, when he was young, I mean, until he's 20 months old, so the first year of his life I wasn't elected yet, and therefore we spent all sorts of time, together. I was campaigning in the riding, but it's right beside the house, and therefore I was around much of the time, so much. Now I'm not being able to give the same kind of attention to Ella Grace, and Xavier is learning that Daddy goes away, so he's bye, and he doesn't cry. He sort of takes it into stride, but he just knows that the times when Daddy's there are precious, and he needs to be in my arms all the time because then I leave for long stretches at a time where he misses me.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking for me. It's heartbreaking for Sophie. It's heartbreaking for him too. I know. But to deal with that, and to know that it's amazing how lonely a life Ottawa is. Sophie's like, oh, you're busy, you're at cocktail parties, you're at this, that. I said, you know what? You have your hill life, the meetings, the committees, the things like that. Maybe there's a little cocktail that you're at that you don't particularly want to be at. You go home, you grab a slice of pizza, you make a bowl of cereal, you try and watch a little TV, and you go to sleep alone. You wake up the next morning and go to work. I mean, there's a real loneliness to life in Ottawa that. Even for me, I have lots of family in Ottawa. My stepfather and my cousin, my half brother, and I have family here. But when you're in Parliament Hill, Ottawa, it's this little bubble. Four blocks from the hill is your entire world. It's not really even Ottawa, and you don't connect. I don't think about connecting with my family. When I do, it doesn't always work out, and I'm always thinking of other things. It's really hard to do anything else than be focused, and that's something that I'm trying to improve on.
Is it worth it?
Yeah. And that's the question I ask myself every week when I come home and I see Xavier and I see my daughter and my wife. I ask myself, okay, was it worth it that you were away from them for 4 days, that you missed, Xavier saying his last name for the first time? Was it worth it that you missed her, sleeping, you missed the whole thing? And so far, the work I'm doing, the things that I'm learning, the building that's going on, is worth it. But knowing that I will be asking that question every single week for the rest of my life or the rest of my political career is something that keeps me really grounded and will prevent me from getting distracted by the gamesmanship of Ottawa. I mean, I'm here to serve. I did this because I believe I can make a difference. The day I think that I'm not making that much of a difference, that I'm not being part of the solution, I'm just perpetuating a system that people grow cynical about, is the day I say, you know what, I know I can transform the lives of a few hundred kids a year as a high school teacher, and because I did that before, and I can be a lot more present for my family and my kids. I'll leave politics. So I demand a level of meaning in every single day here, and that's one of the things that keeps me grounded.
You were really young when your mom and dad's marriage ended. What lessons did you take from that to help you being a politician now and being happily married to Sophie?
It's hard to say. I mean, my parents' marriage was, they loved each other incredibly, passionately, completely, but there was 30 years between them. And my mom never was an equal partner in you know, what encompassed my father's life is his duty, his country. She was a partner in the child rearing stuff and the family stuff, but not in his full life. And that lesson for me is the one thing that I draw with Sophie. Sophie is, you know, she's my age. She's extraordinarily insightful, like my mom was. But I'm very much open to talking strategy with her. Although she hates talking strategy, she's much more focused on the meaning. When I get home and say, oh, you know, they did this, so we're doing this, so this is the angle and this is the spin. She's like, don't talk to me about that. Where's the meaning? What are you really doing? And she's really great at bringing me back to that and reminding me of that. And in terms of that, we have very, very much a partnership that I wouldn't be a very good politician if Sophie wasn't in my life. And knowing that she knows that is what hopefully is going to make everything a lot easier in terms of the difficult times that, you know, we'll always go through.
When I think back to my childhood, my memories started about 3, so they actually are, my earliest memories are of 24 Sussex. I remember a few things. I remember the parquet floor in the entrance hall, and I remember being told by our housekeeper, Pearl, that I couldn't go downstairs before 7 in the morning because the gorillas would get me. I remember this very clearly in 24.
Okay.
So, what are your earliest childhood memories? Hopefully they're a little less traumatic than being chased by gorillas.
Yes, gorillas. Well, but that reminds me, there was, my favorite cereal is and always was Alpen. And
Alpen?
Alpen.
Even as a kid?
Even as a kid, I loved it too.
Oh my goodness.
And as a kid, on the back of the Alpen, it says Alpen is great as a nighttime snack in the morning for breakfast, for, you know, with yogurt, and it's sure to be a hit as a late night snack for the men around the house. I mean, this is an old incarnation of it.
Okay.
You have a perception of this. For me, the men around the house were the night watchmen that wandered through the halls of 24 Sussex at night when we were sleeping.
Right.
So I figured, oh yeah, no, everyone has that because they talk about these guys on the Alpen box that the men around the house are really going to love, you know, this cereal. So there's little things that, you know, like the gorillas, I guess. We had the night watchmen around the house. They only last, I think they were gone by the time you guys moved in, and you guys actually pulled up the carpet that was in the entrance hall to put down the parquet floor.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Because there was a beautiful carpet. No,
was there?
No, it was sort of a beige carpet. It was fun to roll on. And you replaced it with a black and white tiled the parquet floor that was good for dancing on, I guess. But
yeah, we did a lot of dancing.
I always remember that, blaming that on you guys specifically, that they ripped up the perfectly good carpet that we loved to play on when we put the Christmas tree under.
You know, actually, that must have been really weird to be out of the house for a period of time and then to go back and there would be all these changes inside of it.
Little changes, yeah. You know, it wasn't all that weird because our father raised us knowing the entire time that this wasn't our house, that this life that we had with all the great trips and all the staff around and everything was entirely conditional upon the job that he was doing and the service that he was performing. And, you know, we weren't allowed to let any of this stuff go to our head. The fact that we had RCMP bodyguards or the fact that the Queen came over for lunch and those sorts of things was all very much situational and was not, you know, something that as kids we could suddenly feel that we were better than, you know, our schoolmates at Rockcliffe Park Public School because of that. So I remember I don't remember the last time when we left 24 Sussex in '79 after your dad won, but I do remember leaving Harrington Lake after your dad won, because we'd been raised at this lake and just knew it, and saying goodbye to it. I don't even remember saying goodbye to it in 1984. I remember saying goodbye to it in 1979 with a sense of you know, just tremendous loss more than anything else, because, you know, Ottawa was always the busyness, but up at the lake, that was where, you know, yes, Dad showed up with briefcases full of work, but we were a family. There wasn't, you know, endless lines of people. It was us. It was walks in the woods. It was, private.
Yeah. I remember my mom telling a story once of coming into the kitchen at Harrington and finding a raccoon. And she went back out to the RCMP and said, listen, if you see another raccoon, just kill the things because they're getting into the house and they're driving me crazy. So she goes back into the kitchen and she said about 5 minutes later she hears about 5 shotgun shots. And the RCMP had taken her to heart. They'd killed all these raccoons. And she got a visit from one of the guys from downtown.
Yeah, from the NCC,
yeah,
probably.
Well,
saying,
no,
this is a park, or no, from the RCMP?
They were saying, Ms. McTeer, did you authorize the discharging of weapons? And Mom said, well, I asked them to take care of the raccoons, but I didn't know they were going to really do it. But Harrington was, I mean, besides the fact that there were people there with shotguns, it was a private retreat. It was a space for being away.
Yeah, but even the people there with shotguns. I mean, the RCMP, because we were raised with them always around, there was, they were, babysitters, uncles, aunts, drivers' friends. We used to play frisbee with us. They were just part of the environment in which we were raised. And I realize now, looking back, that they were also role models for me. I mean, the men and women of the force who were present in my life as constants, as reliable, sturdy, strong, continual presences was really something. I mean, they say, the RCMP in many ways shapes this country. Well, it shaped me growing up and being around them, and just the quality of people around us in general in that life was really something extraordinary.
Yeah, I think that I always tell whenever I see RCMP, I'm always that crazy person who waves at them and tells them that I think they're wonderful people, and I think they think I'm a little loony. But it's true. I feel what you feel towards RCMP. But in terms of your own childhood memories, do you have a happiest one? Do you have a memory that kind of defines your childhood, especially here in Ottawa? So many.
So many little things. The nights Dad would come and give us a kiss before going to bed in his full white tie and tails with his cologne on, and we know he was going out to the NAC for some ballet or some grand. There's something so comforting, because it didn't happen often, but when he did, he just looked so great in the whole top hat and tails with the cologne. It was just, something absolutely magical and comforting about, him kissing us goodnight, knowing that he was off for an evening, and knowing that if we woke up in the middle of the night with a nightmare about skeletons, I remember that one, we could run and find him either in the office or asleep in the other room, and there was this presence of his that was just magical and totally tied up in Ottawa. The other one that I remember that there was very little, like I said, that was ours. But the one thing that was my father's old car, the 300 SL, a little convertible. And when we used to drive up to Harrington on the weekends, it would be my father in the driver's seat, me in the passenger seat, with Mish in my lap, and Sash sitting astride the gear shift. It's a little two-seater, and we put all 4 of us in there and would drive up to the lake,
and
just a half-hour drive.
You?
We had the RCMP behind us, we had the RCMP in front of us, no one was going to say a thing. And that, for me, I mean, that car, which I have now, is a piece of my childhood that otherwise, of which very little remains. I mean, it's the one piece of my childhood that I still have in my life.
You have accomplished a lot in your life, but especially in the past 7 or 8 years. I mean, just so many different things have happened. You've become a dad. You are a husband. You are now a member of Parliament. Is there ever a sense of sadness that 2 people who meant so much to you, your dad, who would be so proud of you, and your brother, are not here to see what you've accomplished?
Every day. You live, when you lose, when I lost my little brother, obviously wasn't as tough on me, I guess, as it certainly was on my father and my mother, because losing a child, now that I have children, I can't even imagine. But as an older brother, you tend to feel protective, and losing Mish really touched me and affected me and makes me, he'll be 23 forever now. And now when I think of, as I'm a member of Parliament and as Sash is doing great things as a documentarist and as a journalist, I think, okay, where would Mish be? He'd already be up to 4 or 5 kids. He'd be still living in the mountains somewhere, doing wonderful work, having his path, and he'd be sort of looking at us, smiling, from where he is in the mountains. Well, where he is now in the mountains. I wish he saw my kids. But I know he's watching them. I just wish that he could hold them and they could know him. I wish my kids would know my father. I wish my father could. He met Sophie years ago when she was Mishi's friend, but wouldn't really have necessarily remembered her. So she has at least memories of having nice conversations with him. But it's different. I know he would have been deeply proud of me for being able to find as wonderful a woman to share my life with as Sophie. And there are little things like that I will live the rest of my life with a dad and Mishi-shaped holes in my world. And you fill them and you find out how to live with them, but they're always there. And it gives you a real sense of perspective on what really matters and what doesn't matter so much. And it's a nice balance. I mean, my father, well, he left politics. I was 13, and he raised us. He was there every morning, every afternoon, every evening, every weekend, full time, through all of our teenage years, through my early 20s when I was at McGill. When I finally moved out to Vancouver, I still come and see him. But he was such a constant presence in my life, the way many kids who grew up in politics weren't that young. I mean, he retired when I was 13, so he was a full-time dad, and we had so many conversations about so much and so little. I mean, just everything and nothing. And I know him so well as a person, as values. I mean, I keep getting called upon to defend his political legacy and the history of the time. I know nothing about, I'm learning, but I'm no expert on his years in politics and what he did and what he meant and this and that. So when people ask me to justify that or explain it, I'm like, you know what, I'm not the person. But you want to know what kind of character he had, the personality, the values, the things that he chose to pass along to his kids, the things he believed in. We were extraordinarily lucky to have a tremendous level of closeness with our father like that. So I know what he'd think about most of the different things that I say. Not specific policies, but the principles, and to hang on to them. A sense of logical rigor, as well as tapping in with sort of a deep sensitivity and passion that I try to bring to the world. There's a sense of familiarity about that, and I know he's watching. I just can't ask him for his opinion anymore.
Justin, I so appreciate that you took the time to be here today. It's been really nice to chat with you.
My pleasure, Catherine.
And good luck.
Thank you so much.
Together, they shaped a nation. Join Pierre Burton History Award nominee Holly Doan for The Premiers, a groundbreaking television